Bava Kamma daf chaf Gimel continues the Gemara's discussion about Eish, fire, whether it's Misham Mimoine or Misham Chetze, and then the Gemara continues learning the Mishnah and gets into the case of the dog who was carrying the Charara, and we'll conclude the daf with another Mishnah. So let's begin. The Gemara has been discussing a machlokes between Reish Lakish and Rav Yechanan. When you are obligated for the damages caused by a fire that you set, is that because it's like you shot an arrow, you created the fire and it traveled? Or is it your possession and you're obligated for something caused by your possessions which you should have watched that you did not? The Gemara now wants to bring another raya in this machlokes. The Gemara quotes a kasha, sort of, or a raya that Rava asked to Abaye. According to the opinion that Eish is Mishum Chetzioi, how do you find the case of Tamun Ba'Eish? Now, Tamun means we have something which is hidden. So let's say you set fire to a haystack and there's something inside the haystack. So the halacha is that according to the Tana Kamma, you're putter. According to the Rabbanan, that is, you are putter on those things which are inside the haystack. Rabbi Yehuda holds Rechayev, but the Rabbanan do hold, and it's majority opinion, that you are putter for Tamun, for something hidden inside. So the question is, why does the fact that it's hidden make you putter for it? If you fire an arrow at something and it hits and it breaks and it penetrates and it goes further than the surface and it breaks something else, for sure you're chayav for that. You've fired an arrow. It's your strength that's causing the damage. Why should I ever have a hamina? And why should I think that you wouldn't be chayav for that? Why should that be the halacha? So the Gemara answers no. When we say that you're not chayav for Talmud, we were talking about a situation where the fire should have stopped. That there was a wall, the fire was spreading, there was a wall that would have blocked it, and then the wall fell down, not because of the fire, independent of the fire. The wall fell down, and that allowed the fire to go further. So your original arrow, as it were, ends by the wall. The fire could not have naturally passed further than the wall at the time that you lit it, meaning the arrow couldn't have gone further at the time that you fired it. However, then the wall fell down and therefore went further. So that's not your responsibility anymore. That's not your chitz. So that's why you're putter for that. So the Gemara says, if that's true, then anything that's past the wall, you should be putter whether it's tamud or it's not tamud. What does tamud have to do with it? So the Gemara says, so this is a case, what we're trying to say here is this is a case where there's no mechayev of chitz, because the chitz ends, and anything further than that is not chitz. However, both opinions agree that there is a concept of eshe mishum mimoine. According to one that says eshe mishum chetze, he holds of both, moment and chitz. So now going further, now in this situation, you only have a case of moment, and it will be putter on Talmud, because Mammon, the Eish Mishum Mammon, is putter on Talmud. So Gemara has now, therefore, changed the machlokes radically. It's no longer a question of is Eish Mishum Mammon or Mishum Chetz, but Eish is definitely Mishum Mammon. The question is it also Mishum Chetz or not? So Gemara then asks, so well, then what is the machlokes then? What is the nafkamina between the two opinions? If everyone holds the Eish is Mishum Mammons in a situation where it belongs to you, where there would seem to be that there's a machlokes there also, where it's your fire, everyone holds it, you're going to be obligated for it. What is the possibility? What is the difference if it's chetzai also or not? So for that, the Gemara answers, the nafkamina is, are you chayav for all the four types of hezek that a person is chayav for that other types of mazikim are not chayav for? We have not only nezek, but also tsari, boshevas, and if it's considered to be an arrow that you fired, you're chayav for those things. If it's just your property, then you're not chayav for it. Now, the Gemara also points out the case where the wall fell, it has to be that you could have blocked the fire from going further and you did not. Because if you to be chayav because of moment, it has to be that it's your responsibility. To be your responsibility, you have to have been able to stop it, which you failed to do. The Gemara refers back to the Mishnah, but we're really continuing this sugya as well. The Mishnah had said that where the dog takes the cookie which has a coal on it and he drops it on a pile of grain and it sets it on fire. So we had seen that the halacha was that on the entire pile of grain is machlokes and Reish Lakish, because the eshe mishum chetzi or eshe mishum mimoine, are you chayav chatzi nezek for the entire pile of grain, or you not chayav anything? You're totally putter for the entire pile of grain. So the Gemara says, though, on the spot where the coal itself hit, you are chayav for it. The implication is that the owner of the dog is chayav. The Gemara asks, why is it the owner of the dog? It should be the owner of the coal that's chayav. Meaning, to the extent that the owner of the dog is chayav, he should be chayav. But where it stops, according to Yechanan at half, and according to the Reish Lakish at whole for the rest of the Gadish, the owner of the fire should be chayav because his fire was taken, it's out of control, it's his mammon, it's his property. Everybody agrees. You just told me that he's responsible for the fire as his property, so he should be chayav for what happens afterwards. For whatever the dog is not chayav, the owner of the fire should be chayav. So my answers, case has to be where the owner of the coal did adequately protect his coal, and he could it's not his fault that it escaped. So Gemara says, if he adequately protected, how did the dog get to it? Gemara says he dug a hole under the door of the yard in which it was in. So Gemara points out, okay, so you're telling me that the owner of the fire was an oinus because he could not have expected the dog to come in there, but the owner of the dog is chayev, and we, as far as which mechayev it is, we call it shein and regel. We don't say that it's keren. So you're telling me it's a normal thing for a dog to dig under a door. It may not be. You could still say that the owner of the fire is an oinus. However, it's not keren. The Gemara now wants to know, hold on a second, where was this cookie when the dog ate the cookie? He's chayiv on it for shein, but shein only chayiv if it's in the property of the nizik. Now, the case was that he ate the cookie and the coal was placed immediately upon the pile of grain. So it must have been in the property of the owner of the grain. So that's not the same, that's not the owner of the cookie. So how are you chayiv the cookie if it's shein and if it's in the property of the owner of the grain, not the owner of the cookie? So our answer is the owner of the grain owned the cookie as well. It's the same individual, and therefore you chayiv for both of them. Now, the Gemara then says, you can learn from here that the mouth of an animal is not considered chatzar hamazik. The Gemara says this is a question we had later. If a cow eats somebody's food, do you say that the food which is in the cow's mouth is in the chatzar hamazik because the cow belongs to the mazik? The cow is the mazik, so it belongs to the owner of the mazik, and therefore it's not chatzar nezik. You can't be chayiv for it. So Gemara says, that was a question we had, and you see from here the fact that you're chayiv for the eating of this cookie, that you are chayiv for something which is eaten by an animal, and therefore it's chatzar ha-nizik. It's not viewed as its own chatzar. Now, the Gemara says, how could we have ever had such a question? How you ever chayiv for shein if every time an animal eats something, it's considered to be the chatzar ha-mazik and not chatzar nizik? So that the Gemara explains, maybe I would have thought you're not chayiv for eating. I would have thought you're only chayav for other types of hana that the animal has, like if it rubs itself against the wall to scratch itself and it breaks the wall, or if it relieves itself on fruits, which happens often, Rashi says, and therefore it ruins the fruits. So the Gemara asks, if that's the only possible case of shein, there's a problem, because shein is described as kasher yavayer adetumai, which means that it's what's called machal yikana. You're completely destroying the thing. And these things, you're not completely destroying it. You're breaking the wall, or you're making the fruits filthy, so it's going to be damaged but not fully destroyed. Where do you have a situation where it's fully destroyed? It's machal yikana. So the Gemara says, no, I could tell you maybe there was a nice sculpture in the wall and he totally rubbed it out, or the fruits were so pushed into the mud that they were unsalvageable. Now the Gemara begins bringing rise to this question, the question of, is the mouth of the animal considered to be its own rishos hanizik? Somewhere has two proofs. Somewhere first proof is from a case where somebody sets a dog or a snake against someone else, not his own dog and not his own snake. He incited someone else's dog and snake against an individual. So the halacha is pater. The Gemara explains the meshasa, the one who sets the dog or the snake, is pater, but the owner of the dog or the snake is chayiv. So Gemara says here, the mazik caused by the dog or the snake is with its mouth. Let him say, what is your hand doing in my dog's mouth? It's his own private rishos, it's rishos hanizik, and therefore I'm not responsible for what happens if you put your mouth in my dog's mouth, if you put your hand in my dog's mouth. So the Gemara answers two answers. Either you say that they are both pater. When we say that he is pater, we mean not only is the person who incites pater, but he's pater in addition to the person who owns the dog. The owner of the dog, the snake, is also pater. Or I can tell you that here it was not in the mouth. Here, the situation was that he had his teeth, his fangs that stick out of his mouth, and he used those to scratch and to be mazik the person who caused the hezek. Okay, my second proof is from a similar case where a person took a snake and he attacked someone else with it. I mean, he held the snake's mouth open so that its fangs were sticking out, and he placed them on someone else, and its venom went into that person, and he made him snake bit, and he died from that. So the halacha there is, Rabbi Yehuda says that the person who did it is chayav, and the Chachamim say they are pater. Rabbi Yaakov explains, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the snake's venom has to come out. He doesn't have a choice in the matter. If you put his fangs into someone, it'll be triggered automatically, and therefore the snake didn't do anything. The person is chayav because he's a murderer. It's like he hit him with a sword, hit him with snake venom. Either way, he found a way of putting something deadly into that individual. Now, the Chachamim say, though, the snake has a choice whether or not to eject venom, and since it ejected venom, it was its own choice. Therefore, the snake is a murderer, not the person. The person is obviously a big enabler, but he's pater, and the snake is considered to have killed someone, and therefore the snake gets skila like any animal who kills someone. So the question is, why should the snake get skila? Let the owner of the snake say, what is your hand doing in my snake's mouth? It's his own private rishus. So the Gemara answers that as far as the halacha of killing the animal that killed, you don't say, what is your hand doing in his rishus? You don't say, what are you doing in my rishus? The whole concept of rishus hanizik doesn't apply for the judgment against an attacking animal. As far as whether you kill the animal or not, there's no difference with rishus it's in. There, it's across the board. That only makes a difference as far as whether you have to pay. So says, where do you see that? So the Brisa says, if somebody enters a private chutzner without permission, and the ox that lives on the chutzner gored him, and he dies from that. So the owner of the ox doesn't have to pay anything because it's rishus hamasik, but the ox does get skila. So why does the ox get skila? If it's rishus hamasik, he should be free. So the Gemara answers because he could say, as far as the payment, he can say, what are you doing in my rishus? But as far as the misa, that doesn't make a difference, which is exactly what we're trying to bring out here. As far as killing the animal that it kills a person, you do it even if it's in his own rishus. The Gemara now brings two incidents from which we learn two additional halachos. So the first one is involving the goats of a family called the Tarbu family, that they were causing damage to Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef asked his Talmud Abaye to go warn the owners that they better take better care of their goats. Abaye said, if I go to them, they're just going to say, let Rav Yosef put up fences around his field. It's his responsibility to fence in his field, not mine. So Rav Yosef said, if the only situation in which the owner of the goats is chayiv is if there are fences up around the field, so what's the case in which the Torah says that the owner of an animal is chayiv for food that he eats from someone else's field? The field has to be fenced. And if the field's fenced, the goat can't get in. If the field's not fenced, you tell him he's not chayiv. So where is he chayiv? So Abaye answered, where the field is fenced, and either the goat digs under the fence and gets through, or the fence falls down at night when he could not be expected to fix it. Next is that Rav Yosef made an announcement, and some say it was Rabbah, that anyone who goes up to Eretz Yisrael or comes from Eretz Yisrael down to Bavel should say this halacha. The goats that are in the shuk and they're ready to be shechted for meat, and they're causing damage, so we warn the owner 2 or 3 times to take better care, and if not, we tell him, go shechti goats right now, even if it's not on market day and you may lose value, because they're scheduled for shechita anyway, they're causing all kinds of problems, you're not taking care of them, shech them now. We'll now begin our next Mishnah, with which we will end the daf. So the Mishnah discusses, how does an animal become a muad? How does a tam turn into a muad? And how does a muad turn back into a tam? So it's a machekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says it goes by 3 days. If it has 3 incidents in 3 days, it becomes a muad. If it has 3 days where it doesn't do anything, it goes back to being a tam. Rabbi Meir says it's 3 times. So it becomes a muad 3 times. If it does 3 attacks, it becomes a muad. And it becomes a tam when the kids can play with it and it doesn't do anything in response.